One Day Viz Review, week 3 of the relaunch, and it's great to have you all tuned in. If you are online right now watching this live, hit up the comments, tell me you're there, because I only see numbers, I don't see who's dialed in. So let me know you're there, and maybe something fun that's happened to you this week. Could be related to data, could be completely unrelated. I'm flexible with that. Something fun that happened to me, let me think. I just got back from Berlin this afternoon. I was in Berlin for a snowflake event, and it was amazing. And it was fun. That's it. Something special that happened there is I gave a talk. This was a snowflake event, and 2 people in my talk came up to me afterwards. They had participated in Makeover Monday, and they said they were grateful for the project and it helped them in their career. And I was floored. I think that's just really cool how it still keeps happening, that we have people, come up to us at events and, from all parts of the data world. So that's been really great. Now, allow me to quickly grab the Makeover Monday hashtag before I share my screen. And yes, you guys have been visualizing investment stuff, Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. So let's get into this. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow right now. So let me just find the right stuff, and we're going to start. Oh no, here we go. We're going to start by me briefly showing. I'm not showing it yet. Here we are. Ta-da! Me briefly showing you where to find the data if you're new to this. So if you're new to this, I'm Eva Murray. I do these viz reviews for Makeover Monday. I used to co-lead the project with Andy. It's always been great fun. And now with this relaunch, he's really involved in finding the data, putting it all out there for you, doing Watch Me Viz, which he does on Monday afternoons, where you can follow his thinking and visualization creation process. And then on Wednesdays, I give feedback to people for about half an hour. And the first step is you have to find the data before you can participate. So you go to makeovermonday.co.uk/data. And every week's data set is in there. You'll see the date for the most current week. Of course, we didn't start with one because we're going by calendar weeks, and you'll get a bunch of links, the link to the data set, the link to the Watch Me Viz, which is a live stream, and then, of course, Viz Review, which is also a live stream, but also the source of the data, because this is information that you should include in your visualization so that people know where the data came from. So let's have a very quick look. This is what the original looks like. Let me just expand that. So a bit almost like a card, like an app or something. You have this fabulous donut chart showing what Warren Buffett has invested in, or his holdings company. Lots of Apple, clever guy, and a bunch of other ones, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, Chevron, and then showing how that's grown since 1994 to 2022. So very cool. This is by Pie Chart Pirate. Very cool name. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to Twitter, to the Makeover Monday hashtag, and I'm just going to kind of pick at random, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit and then go backwards. Otherwise, we always have, the people who've most recently posted definitely getting a review, and then some people not. And I want to be fair, but also what I want to focus on is diversity. So variety in the visualizations, not just reviewing 10 bar charts, but 10 different kind of charts. I can make it to 10. So let me just scroll down a little bit to Monday-ish, and you will sometimes see that there's older data sets popping up if people catch up on previous weeks. So we're going to skip those. We're just going to focus on this week's data set. September 12th. Yeah, there's been some makeovers. Okay. So I think Frank always just retweets Andy, so this is definitely not a makeover. Okay, let's start with Daniel Ling, and head up the tweet in nice and large. Okay, so simple stacked bar chart replacing Coca-Cola with Apple is his title, combined with Berkshire Hathaway Holdings, which I think a lot of people would recognize as something they've heard about before, something Warren Buffett-y. They might not know exactly, but they don't need to know. It's, that might be explained. I really like the simplicity of it. At first glance, getting the red Coca-Cola color and then seeing, oh, actually, replacing it with Apple, you can see that visually. Now, a couple of comments I would make is I think the dark gray isn't all that different from the light gray. Like, of course it is, but visually, I think that I don't know how to solve it, quite frankly. But that's my first impression, that it's quite similar to the light gray. Like, I don't see the stark contrast between these Apple shares and then all those other ones. That's not super obvious for me. Might be just a matter of playing around a little bit. It would also be good to maybe, and I love the minimalist style and I like that it's nice and clean, but sometimes a little bit of extra explanation really makes a big difference. To just explain that, you've got Coca-Cola and Apple makes up the biggest chunk of his portfolio by the looks of this, just at first glance. But just to mention that all those other chunks of gray bars are the other holdings he has. So yeah, and then the pivoted or rotated dates are very hard to read, so I'm basically ignoring them. But what would help me is to maybe just every 5 or 10 years to have an indicator. So it could literally just be apostrophe 94, and then maybe 2004, and then 14, and then 22, or some other kind of distribution of the dates, just so I have an idea of what years they are. But I like the overall clean approach here. Okay. Okay. Aaron Simmons. Let's have a look. Let's make this a bit bigger. Actually, I'm going to just open. I don't see a link, so I'm going to just go with the image. So I'm going to make this a bit bigger. I can see on your screen it's not filling out all that well. Okay, so this is what did I say? Sorry, Aaron Simmons. Yeah. So we've got on the left side, we've got this bar chart that shows us the value in US dollars, I assume, of the different investments that Warren Buffett has made. So you can see Apple's at the top, Coca-Cola, others. Interesting, but what does others include? Because there's also a list of many other companies as well. So what's the difference between others and then the combination of Wells Fargo, Amex? Like, is others maybe the bottom 50, or what is behind others? And then we also have a column chart, or horizontal, vertical bar chart going across. There's fun fact, and fun fact, which I can't hover over because I've got the image, but there wasn't a link. So I would recommend, Aaron, make sure you put the link in the tweet, especially if interactivity really adds more value to your biz. I don't know what this. So he says shares. I imagine it's the value of the shares rather than the number of shares, because I doubt he has 300 billion shares in a company. So a bit more precision there. So a bit of attention to detail to just spell that out precisely, because people will ask you. We always want to make sure that for Maker Monday, you can learn things that you can use in your everyday work life. So if this was a business meeting or some kind of company meeting or team meeting, somebody would say, oh, what unit of measurement is that? So I imagine it's in US dollars on those two bar charts. I would specify that, and then also showing that these are years, because we're going 94 to 21, which is a bit confusing, and because people are used to seeing that kind of data, so time series data on the line. Using a bar is not wrong in any way. I like the use of the bar, but you just have to tell them these are years. All-time top 10 rank. So a comment here would be, in those first years, you only have 4. So did he only have 4 things in his top 10? Like, why is there only 4? Should there always be 10? Did he not have more than 10 companies or more than 4 companies he invested in? Like, what's the deal with that? Or is it just that these top 10 across all time, only 4 of them featured in those first 4 years? So something I would, again, specify or clarify. And I think in Daniel's viz we saw before, it was much more obvious to see what was like, well, the top two really, Coca-Cola and Apple, like seeing that combination. I think the top 10 rank here, or the top however many, it doesn't really give me much. It doesn't tell me what's interesting about that. So what I think is interesting, and I see it really well in the top chart, the horizontal one, is that the last 3 years, I think Apple has been, well, no, it hasn't been Apple. No, this is just, okay, I'm getting confused because Apple on the left is purple. There's also other companies, then Apple is purple and Bank of America are purple. So the colors are confusing because they're not consistent, because in the bar charts, the color, it seems to be a gradient for the value, but in the bottom chart, the colors are distinct for each company. So I would make sure that's consistent across those two. But I think what's interesting is that switch from Coca-Cola to Apple, but also that Apple has become such a big part of his holdings in just the last 5 or so years. Okay, let's move on to the next one. I'm just going to quickly check the comments. Yes, yeah, Felicia has a very similar comment about the consistency of the colors. Okay, we'll skip past the last week's Makeover Monday. Very quick look at Marian's viz, because I think it's also important. Well, it's important to review all kinds of vizzes and from people at various levels of how much they know about data viz. And Marian has a real eye for design and real focus on it. And I think it's good to also look at those for a bit of inspiration. And there's always things we can improve, but also things where we're like, oh, that's something really cool, a really cool technique. So there's an insight right there in the title. Betting big, that's not easy to say. Betting big on Apple and holding on has paid off for Berkshire Hathaway. So, investing initially in 2016 and then really investing heavily and hold it. Well, there's that split its stock 4 for 1. So for every stock you had in 2019, you would get 4 stocks that quadrupled. Of course, it doesn't quadruple in value because the value also goes down. But then as the value increases, you have more shares across which the value will be then growing. So that paid off. And, this is the kind of stuff I love. One simple insight. Sometimes that's all you need. Like, you don't need to analyze the whole data set and every aspect of it and find 10 different things to call out. One thing is good enough. In a work environment, I think if you can give one really good insight instead of 10 things that everyone's like, so what? That's much more of a win and much more impactful than just explaining what's there or spelling out what's obvious. So yeah, I really like that. And I like the call out of the stock split as well. Okay. Oh, shoot. There's a shortcut for the last closed window and I don't remember it. Here we go. No, not the Queen. Go on there. Didn't quite work. Okay. And of course we have to go to latest. So guys, I'm just scrolling down to Marian's viz because that's obviously the one we just looked at. Should be coming soon. Oh, just under the puppies. Okay. And so Anne Jackson, she created a animated bar chart and it's really interesting. So let's, I don't know if we can make that bigger. Oh, I think I can. Oh dear. I hope you can still see it because I can't see what you can see. There's a funky flashing going on and I think she commented on that as well. For me, like these are grabbing my attention, but it's really hard to kind of get any insight because it's gone so quickly. So I'm sure she has a static version, which is totally fine. But yeah, bar charts, interesting to just see the change over time and with Apple growing so much. Okie dokie. And the bride to be, okay, I need to, okay, let's go and have a look at this one. I'm gonna open this up separately now so I don't break things. Okay. Oh, it looks like we've got some more people joining the chat, which is great. I'm just going to quickly have a look at the comments. So, welcome Zainab and Michelle, and great to see Tammy here as well. Okay, cool. So, Warren Buffett's stock holdings. So we have the bar chart again, and I think a bar chart always creates a really nice overview. And then we have this area chart, and you know what? The others, the challenge there is the gray is really similar to the apple gray, so that's a bit hard to differentiate, but it could maybe even, I don't know, it could be a different color. Apple could be a different color. Apple could be black or even darker. But I think the one thing that's really neat here is just how massive the Apple stock area is in this chart. So what could actually be done here is you don't even have to keep all those other colors. They could be just grouped up into one color, and then Apple could be the other color to show how big a part of the holdings is, which is, I think from memory, just under 50%. Yeah, and then this bump chart I think is a bit easier to read because it's more spaced out than one that we saw previously, and I like that there's labels involved, and where you can also see where they got rid of the stocks, I assume, or where at least it's not in the top 10. Invested in Apple in 2016, stopped IBM in the same year. That man is a clever man. Okay, so we have another animation thing, and they're just a bit hard to review because they're constantly changing, so it's hard for me to pinpoint. Oh, okay, this is too big. Sorry, moving on. Some older ones. Let's have a look at this bar chart. Stock economics. Okay. Yeah, this is definitely economics. I have to just reactivate my brain a little bit here. Let me just read that out loud. So since 1994, their assets have been growing at a compound annual growth rate of 11.3%. Oh, this is from Klaus. I didn't even recognize that. This way, Buffett turned $15.2 billion into $307.3 billion. So I love it. And what I would love to see from Klaus is two things. The first one, given that he is really clever with Tableau, but also with economics and accounting, to explain what the compound annual growth rate is, because for a lot of people, that can be confusing, myself included. I come across it all the time, but some stuff just doesn't really sink in. So an explanation would, I think, be really useful. And then also, when you produce things for the English-speaking audience, I would change the comma to a dot. And I know in Germany, we have the comma, and it always trips me up when I then do things in German. But yeah, in I guess in most English countries, at least the ones I've lived in and I've worked in, it would be 11.3 rather than 11.3. But yeah, I think it's really neat also to have that connection from the start to the finish to show the value. And I imagine that right now, you can see how in 2022 that's lower than in 2021. Yeah. And that must just be the current economic climate rather than, without everything that's going on in the world right now, I'm sure we would have seen that even more. So still super impressive growth rate. Okay, I'm not going to close this again. I'm going to move on. Oh, here we go. This is interesting. Sam Parsons. I'm just going to look at everyone's. Only someone like Warren Buffett can lose $43 billion in a year and not need to panic. Well, the lesson I have learned, and how I wish I could lose $43 billion and not panic. You only really lose when you sell, right? Like your portfolio might be worth less, but unless you sell, you haven't made a loss. You're just going to sit and hold. And the trough that we're in right now, that's when you buy. That's something I did. Like I don't try and stress about my stock portfolio because I'm not selling right now. I'm going to sit this one out. No, I'm not going to say that. That's going to include a swear word. But anyway, now is a good time to buy for those who can. But I love that he really draws my attention to, oh my God, that's how much he lost. Like, I want to see more of this. So you can see the loss. So the loss is all those that are on the left side, all the red ones combined, all the ones where you see a negative or a down arrow. And I think the down arrow is great because some of them, the bars are so small, you can't really see the bar, but you still know this way that it's actually negative. And the ones that have gained, they're on the right side. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. And just to kind of reiterate and you know what's also interesting? The year isn't even over. It might go further down. But yeah, I love the attention-grabbing headline, and I like that the slope chart that is filled below in red also acts as a frame for the actual viz. That's really cool. Okay. Okay, next one. We have a link. Let's go ahead and look. Joaquin Rojas. I hope I said that right. Berkshire Hathaway stock holdings evolution. Okay, first impression is I love the colors. They're nice and bright. Do they necessarily make me think of stocks? No, but that doesn't really matter. It's first impression is it grabs my attention. One thing I notice is, and I'm not zoomed in anymore, this is quite large and the font is quite large. And I have said before, and I'm not wearing my glasses, I do like larger font because it's easier to read, but I also would just be considerate of the real estate you're taking up on the screen, because if I put this on this is currently on a 30-something inch really wide screen. If I had this on a smaller screen, it might be harder to read, or I might have to scroll. But also, there's a lot of text in this viz, and I would probably make those text elements more like they are almost box-like already, but make them a bit more compact and move them towards something. So we have technology, financial services, and consumer defense. This seems to be what he's invested in. Consumer defensive sector. What is that? Anyway, I do not know. I don't think there's an explanation. Oh. Coca-Cola. Or is consumer defensive a combination of the consumer sector and the defensive sector? Because I don't see how Coca-Cola has anything to do with defense, unless you, I guess, throw it in someone's face. Anyway, what I wanted to say here is I like the highlighting of the different categories in color, but I don't see it connected to anything in the viz. So am I looking at this technology text in relation to these three bubbles there on the right? But then how do I connect financial services? Like which green bubbles? So that is something, I like the explanation, but I think they're in the way of the viz, but they're also not connected to something. And that's probably the one thing I would look at for this viz. And that way you can highlight more easily, because it already says, where he invested 550 billion in technology between 2016 and 2022 in Apple stocks. It's a lot of money to invest. Is that correct? I'm wondering, after looking at Marian's viz, if that's correct, or if he invested more earlier and then because of the stock split and the growth, it grew to that. I don't know off the top of my head, but this section could be really connected to those bubbles on the right side. Okay. Game of shares. Okay, let's have a look at that. So one thing I would say, the preview of a thumbnail isn't that important. But as you can see with this tweet, I see this viz and I'm like, oh, is that part of it? Is that the whole thing? Because it looks like it could be cut off. I don't see a title. It's a bit off to the left. There's a lot of white space on the right. So have a think about when you create your viz, because Joaquin, I see a very different cut off. I see the title. I see a bit of text. I can gauge whether I want to look at this. What you could do alternatively is, if you want to make sure that your full viz is visible in your tweet, put the photo in the tweet or the picture. So take a screenshot, or you can just export an image from Tableau and put the link in there as well, because then people can explore it, but then you can control what people look at. Okay, is having diversified shares reason behind success? There's a few articles missing here. So is having diversified shares the reason behind the success of Berkshire Hathaway? I like the question as a title. I would just make it a lot bigger, because it's gray. It kind of disappears a bit because there's a lot of color going on in the viz that grabs my attention. I I don't understand why the years at the top and the stuff goes down, because it makes me think a little bit, having just looked at a few other ones, that he's lost all this money, or that these investments are negative. Also, the color looks like it's something a bit more negative. I would switch that around, make it go up, and look at the colors. But also, this is probably a good point, or a good time to point out that colors and directions are actually, well, on the one hand subjective, but also have a cultural connotation. If you look into your emojis, at least on the iPhone, the line chart that goes up is in red and the one that goes down is in blue. For us in the UK and in other Western countries, that doesn't seem logical, because we put red lines to be negative and blue lines to be positive. But yeah, there is a cultural context, and I don't want to claim that that's not something that's at play here. So yeah. Okay. Okay, we've done enough bar charts, I think. Let's see what else we can find. There's more kind of, there's a Power BI one. Let's have a look at that. Why not? I see a lot of I see a lot of comments. I know Andy's there, so I will let him address the comments so I can focus on the vizzes. I'm going to open this in a new tab, because then it's a bit, it's definitely bigger. Yep. I don't know if I can, is it, maybe it's cut off in the, no, how can I, trying to make this it's really weird. Okay. I can't zoom out. Okay, but I can scroll across. So what I really like is this, especially because it is about Apple, this kind of tiled Apple-ish looking design with the white and the gray and the drop shadows. I think that looks really neat. I personally am not the biggest fan of bar charts that are really close together, because it looks a bit like, is it an area chart or is it a bar chart? Like the gaps are not big enough to make me think it's a bar chart, but they're not small enough to make it just one consistent area. So that's something, it's just a personal thing. I'm okay with the colors, but I think they could either pop more or be more subdued. They're kind of a bit, they look like, to me, they're a bit like on the fence. So the red isn't quite Coca-Cola red. Wells Fargo, I don't know off the top of my head what their color is. I guess it might be a yellow. American Express, I know there's a blue in there, right? So I would, if you use colors that are like the brand, I would then use color to just create that connection in people's mind of, oh yeah, Coca-Cola red, like that's what we all know. I love the little line chart at the top, and that little call out there as well. I think this is really neat. And I like that all the metrics are consistent. Like every time it's the value of shares, the axes are consistent. So I can actually compare across and vertically, which is a bit harder, but they're all on the same scale. So that's really helpful. Okay, let's do one or two more. Raisa. Okay, let's see. Feedback always appreciated. That's great, because I just literally just take any that come along. So we've got a waterfall chart, which I know are popular in the finance world. I've seen my fair share of them back in the days. I always found them, well, I understand how they work, but there's a lot for me to process in my brain, and I like simplicity. But this is neat. So basically we have two things going on. We've got a line chart that shows us how the individual stocks have performed, which I guess are, the top 10 stocks. And then in the waterfall chart, we have the entire value of the portfolio. So that's all of the stocks combined in a US dollar value, going up and down. So what's really cool here is you see that there's these cycles in the economy where, like, every 7 or so years, there's a downturn and then it goes up again. And typically the ups are higher than the downs, and the ups are longer than the downs. And this is something I actually read recently, because I'm just becoming a bit of a closet financial, like, investment and personal finance nerd. The downs tend to be quite short and the ups tend to be a lot longer. So the bull market is much longer, like many, many months longer, or even years, as you can probably see, than the bear market, where we have things going down. And you see that he holds, he sits on it and just grows and grows over time. And there's no wonder he is so rich. Good for him. I think he still drives a pretty old car. Okay, we've done line charts, we've done bump charts. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else. That's also really neat. This is Apple-esque again, I would say, with those cards. Just to see if there's anything else. Okay, Mark Suarez, welcome back. It's been so long. Let's look at this one. So the colors totally not the corporate palette of those individual companies, but it really pops. And I have to say, I really like this color palette in Tableau. I don't think I've used it, but I always like when people do, because I think it's just a really interesting combination of colors. So we've got most recent year all the way down to 1994. Now, one thing I think about this one, so I like that you can see the dominance of Apple. You can kind of see the dominance of, you can see the dominance of Coca-Cola. You just have to make sure you check what green it is. What I think you can't see in this type of chart, where you have from 0 to 100% and you're just looking at the percentage of the total portfolio, you don't see the growth of the value of the portfolio over time, which is fine. It doesn't have to be the focus, but I think that's also something that's really fascinating about Warren Buffett and his absolute success. But I like this. I think this is great. This is nice and clean. Mark is a great data viz designer, and it's good to have you back, Mark, in case you're watching at some point. It's good to see you again doing Makeup Monday. Okay, yes, Michelle, you're right that the light colors are hard to read. So the yellow is easy to see, but the word Apple in that viz is pretty hard to read. Like, you have to squint a bit. How are people doing? One more. Okay, let's do one more. Anyone? Well, the problem is there's a slight delay by the time you comment. So I'm just going to scroll slowly to see. Oh, exceptional service. Excellent. Just trying to see. Oh yeah, I did a thread that I posted today about the different things that we put together every week. So feel free to hit that up and have a look, because you might not be aware of some of the stuff, and Andy and I, we genuinely get a kick out of helping people with their data careers. So make use of whatever you like and whatever you can for your own benefit. Okay, I'm just trying to see. Okay, let's have a look at these line charts for a second here. Or these lines, yeah. Warren Buffett, favorite stocks of all time. I don't know if they're his favorite. I mean, they probably are if they're performing so well. But favorite is like he's told you, or you've read somewhere that they're his favorite. They are probably his best investment decisions. I wouldn't call them favorite stocks. I think that is incorrect. It might not be incorrect, but you don't have proof that it's correct. So yeah. Has been investing in these company stocks for a very long time. Now, first comment is make sure that all the axes are synchronized. So it looks like the biggest one goes from 0 to 30 billion. Okay, so these are the ones he's had for longest. So that's why Apple isn't included, because that was a recent kind of thing. So 0 to 30 billion, make all of them 0 to 30 billion, label them as US dollars, and that way you can show also just how much they've grown individually. At the moment, it looks like they're all going in the same direction, all at the same level. But for example, Moody's at the top is about, I want to say 9, I can't even read it, 9 something billion, how much he holds. Whereas Coca-Cola, that same year, is 23 billion. And it looks like it's the same, because the charts have the same amount of space, but the scale is different. So make sure that those axes are all consistent. It's great that you've included the data source, who collected and formatted the data, your own handle as well. And then I think the labels for the years is good as well. Every 2 years is totally sufficient, I would say. So yeah, I would also just make the title. So I would reword that from favorite stocks to something else, make it bigger. So to make sure that it really grabs people's attention. They're like, oh yeah, I know what I'm looking at. And the subtitle, I think, is really helpful. But this makes it look like it's a quote. Like the design of it with this blue box and the years makes it look like you're quoting, I don't know, Shakespeare or something. So I would just take that text and then put it straight under the title, just, as a really like running all the way across, or maybe having 2 rows. And then it's a bit neater formatted as well. Okay. All right. I think we're at the end. I mean, I could keep going, but I'm honestly just a little bit brain dead because it's been a long day of traveling, and I had another event this morning that I was speaking at virtually. So rather than me stumbling across my words and all that stuff, I'm just going to end it here. It's been a delight as always. It's great to see so many comments, and I'm gonna actually read them afterwards. Go through them as well. If you have any questions, fire away, because you can post them on the YouTube live stream recording thing, or on Twitter as well. Let us know. If you have a question, maybe other people have the same question. So if we answer it, I'm sure we'll help more people as well. And what else is there to say for the rest of this week? I'd say have a great time visiting. If you got some feedback, or if you saw something we're like, oh, I should do that next time, you can do it for this week. You can incorporate it next week, whatever it is. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Have a great rest of your day. Take care, stay safe, and yeah, see you next time.